Okay, this is part 2 of my mini-series on holistic treatments for anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. So check out the first video if you haven't seen that one yet. This is part 2, and part 2 is all about action and implementation. So I outlined the things that you're going to be using in the first video: the dietary changes, the lifestyle interventions, the scheduling, the structure, the mindset pieces, and the mindfulness meditation. All really important tools to start putting yourself in a place of what I'm going to call safety and reassurance. Sort of to put your body in a place of peace and stability, sending it signals that everything's okay, so that you can reduce these alarm signals that are going off. But implementation is everything here. Some of this just takes time. Some of this is just a matter of being patient, but we also want to do the things that we need to do. And honestly, they're not that hard. And if you do these little things, then you just let the time pass. And Claire Weeks talks in her book, we'll get to that later, about letting time pass being a very important component of healing from mental illness, because a lot of times we don't want to let time pass. I've mentioned before that it felt like the same day was happening again and again when I was in the worst of my anxiety. It felt like I was trying to fix it every living minute. Every living minute I was trying to fix it, so I wouldn't let anything happen. I wouldn't let time pass. I wouldn't let things change. Kind of like if you're picking a scab just constantly, how are you going to heal that? How are you going to heal that cut, right? So letting time pass is crucial, but letting time pass while we calmly do the right things is crucial. And those right things are the implementation of the tools that we are talking about. So we divided into the mindset piece and the lifestyle piece, and both of those are going to be crucial for you to implement in small ways. So you can delve more into the level of changes that you want to make. I've currently been experimenting with a carnivore diet, which has made the most impact on my mental health out of all the changes, but I didn't get there overnight. I started by trying out a keto diet, experimenting with paleo, cutting way back on my alcohol consumption and caffeine and stimulants, and having a schedule and cutting back on sugar, and then you can keep honing it in from there. So to start out, you need to implement some of those changes, whether it's very small and it's just like, okay, I'm going to stop drinking the pops and the sugary drinks and I'm going to drink sparkling water instead. It's a huge step in the right direction. The bigger change you can make with your diet, I believe the more impact it's going to have. So you're really going to want to try to cut out the processed foods, cut out the vegetable oils, which is in a lot of processed foods. Basically, you're going to want to aim for foods with less than 5 ingredients. You're going to want to make your own foods and focus on whole foods, fruits, vegetables, and meats. Lots of meats, that's good for you. Fats, eggs. You're going to want to cut out gluten. Gluten is a really big problem. And with gluten, if you cut out gluten right away, you're going to be ending up cutting out a lot of carbs, which is awesome. The breads, the pastas, and things that spike your blood sugar and inflame your brain. And an inflamed brain is not a happy brain. So cutting out some of these things and finding other ways to be creative. And I'm not saying you still can't have foods that you enjoy. There's ways of making foods that you enjoy that are a lot better for your body. And even if that just means making it. So even if you want to have a cupcake, it's like, well, why don't you just make it yourself? Don't buy the one from the store, and then use whole good ingredients when you make it. So just make the changes that you can change, but have a few simple rules. Just say to yourself for a month, okay, this is a gluten-free month, and I only drink sparkling water, and I don't have more than 2 alcoholic drinks. Like, that's huge, and that might sound like a drastic change, but we want to get drastic results. So you have to make a plan around your diet. to start making changes. Okay, that's crucial, and no one can do that for you. You've got to do that yourself, and you've got to get interested in it. You've got to get curious. People I have found who have anxiety tend to get more curious if they think something's going to help them. Like that was me. I didn't give a shit about nutrition or diet, but then when I started to think I could implement it to help my depression, to help my anxiety, to help my panic attacks, I was like, I am interested in this now. So I've delved into it. I've tried the different things. There's awesome communities out there. There's videos on YouTube about everything. So if you want to get into the different ways of eating, then go for that. But all I'm saying is you need to make a dietary plan to implement some changes to get rid of the things that are inflaming your brain and that are sending your body signals of alarm. And I've made a video about the top 5 or the top 6 foods to avoid, so you can check that out for the low-hanging fruit. And then I recommend also exploring the benefits of a ketogenic diet when your brain runs on fat instead of carbs. For some people, for a lot of people, that is an absolute game changer when it comes to mental health. So that's something I recommend exploring, but make some changes and have a plan that you can stick to. The other part of this is going to be the mindfulness meditation. And this can be a tricky thing to get started because it can feel like it's not doing anything. But once again, it's a fairly simple thing to do. And if you can just put in the reps of this every day, it's going to start to make a huge difference, even in as little as 2 weeks. So I recommend checking out the app Headspace or checking out the app 10% Happier or the Calm app. And these apps walk you through this stuff. They walk you through it to explain to you how to do it. And no, you're not going to be good at it at first, but that doesn't matter. This is about starting to be able to be aware of what's going on in your mind and your body without jumping in and trying to get all flustered about it. So it can be observing a feeling of anxiety without getting all freaked out. One example is like, it's a busy road with lots of traffic. The traffic is your thoughts and feelings. And what we want to start practicing is just being able to sit on the side and watching that happen without running in and trying to stop all the cars and direct traffic, right? Because we're really not very good at doing that. When I really got over my panic attacks was after I've been meditating for a little bit, and I kind of suddenly realized I can kind of watch what's going on like a movie, like a scary movie, but I know that it's just a movie, so I don't really need to freak out about it. And it was that space, suddenly there was a space between the fear or the anxiety that popped up and between my reaction. And I started to realize if I just let it all happen like a movie, I'm going to be totally fine. It can get as bad as it wants to get. It's okay, because I'm in my seat and this is it playing out in the theater. And that might sound funny, but that's where you can get to too. And as soon as you have that, as soon as you're like, oh, the movie can get scary and I don't care, it stops getting scary because you don't have that secondary fear that I've talked about before. And the secondary fear is being afraid of being afraid of how you're feeling. So when we're not afraid of how we're feeling, we basically just undermine the whole panic attack mechanism, and we can stop having it. We can stop having the brutal anxiety because we take away that secondary fear. But we'll get into that later. Meditation are the bicep curls for that process. It is the gym. It is the training ground. It is it is like your sword. It is your sword in this battle. If the diet is your shield, it's protecting you from these alarming things. This meditation is your sword. That's going to allow you to implement the right strategies to fight off the anxiety and the panic attacks. And when I say fight off, I don't mean literally fight it off, because we're not fighting, but we are equipping ourselves to deal with it better and better each day. So start with, I recommend 5 to 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation. Use one of those apps to learn about it a little bit. I recommend the acceptance and commitment workbook for anxiety, which sort of ties it more directly into how to use this with anxiety. I also recommend the podcast 10% Happier with Dan Harris. You can search through there, and there's some great episodes on anxiety. A lot of these apps even have little mini courses directed specifically for anxiety, so you can learn about it that way. But you need to start implementing at least 5 to 10 minutes a day, and I recommend more if you can manage it, because 10 minutes at each end of the day would be awesome. If you want to really get serious, even go as much as 15. Like, it's up to you. When I started doing it, I was like, man, the more the better if this seems to help. So I just jumped in with it. So you've got to be doing that along with your diet. You've got to make those changes. You've got to schedule that in. Once again, get interested in it. Start realizing that with this exercise, you can actually change the chemistry of your brain, and you can start making new pathways. Because right now, the pathways in your brain are these worn down, they say these neural pathways in your brain that are used to having the little thoughts run down those paths all the time. I'm scared, I'm having a panic attack. It's like the go-to setting. And what you slowly start to do with the meditation is realize, I can take another path. The grass is kind of long, so it's a little slower, but I don't have to take that path that I always go down. And when you create the space, you start to realize, I just always automatically run down that path. What if I pause, walk down a different path? You can do this. And this isn't just thinking. This is literally your brain starting to change, and there's a chance for you to make not even different choices, but also just to behave in a different way, to have a different reaction. So this can change your brain. The research is fascinating. People are using this more and more. So get interested in it, but implement it. 30 days, and then keep going after that. But you need to set it up so that you're going to actually implement this, because it's going to be huge, okay? It makes a difference. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but put it in every day and you will start to see the changes. Sometimes we want some big, huge fix right away, right? Like, I know I've been like that a lot. I still like that in some ways, but you can start to be at peace with your recovery and to trust it when you start to know you're doing the simple things that you need to do each day. A lot of peace comes out of that. So that's crucial. The other thing is the sleep and the schedule. Have at least some level of schedule where you know you're going to bed, you know when you're getting up, so you don't have to worry about that, and so you know you're getting the proper sleep. Just like these foundational building blocks. So have that in there too. Have that routine at least at some level that you can just know, you can trust. Your body can start to trust what's going on. A simple bedtime routine. I like a simple wake-up routine, something like a 10-minute walk and a glass of water, like either end, some calm music. Just have a bit of a routine, a bit of a schedule, and then also implement just planning your days. Some people already have pretty regimented days, other people don't, but you just want to have some schedule built into your day so there's not a ton of unknowns, there's not a ton of surprises. You know what's coming, you can trust the future, you can lean into what you're doing and not have just a lot of surprises around what's going to happen. So some schedule, some order. And then the other thing is, which I mentioned before, is just a project to work on or something simple to just distract yourself a little bit. Whatever this is, like something like restoring an old cabinet, repainting something, building some birdhouses out of wood, painting. One thing I've recommended before, because I think this is a great distraction, is go thrift shopping. Find stuff you like, thrift shopping, and start selling it on eBay and Facebook Marketplace. Sounds like a random thing, but this can be a great distraction. It can pique new interests, and it can help you feel like you're doing something kind of meaningful. If that appeals to you at all, look into it more, because it's really it can lead you down other paths of things you might be interested in. You can make some money on the side, but the point is just to have a project that you can kind of work on, so you feel like, you know what, I might be anxious still and I'm working on this, but like, my life is not on hold. My life is not on hold right now. I'm still doing things. I'm still moving forward. Take an online course, join an online community, start getting involved in a club of some kind. Whatever it is, just find something that you can kind of get into, that you can kind of be interested in. Explore your own curiosities and your own interests, and I've got lots more videos on that, but that's all. That's kind of the final piece, is just to have something that you can kind of work on there, and lean into that. Sorry, there's one more thing in this second piece of implementation in this second video. This is relationships and honest conversation, and this can be a huge healing piece of this. You don't want to just be, like bleeding all over the place all the time, complaining or posting on social media that you have mental illness, like whatever. I don't think that's that helpful, but you do want to have some close friends, or maybe some people you can share this and say, listen, I've been struggling with this, but I'm working on this, and I'm making a plan, but like it's been really hard, and just have an honest conversation. And hopefully there's someone in your life that you can do that with, family member or a close friend, and just say, listen, can we just chat every week or 2 weeks or something, and just build that into your relationships a little bit, so you don't feel so isolated. You don't feel like you're totally on another planet most of the time. It starts to just ground that a little bit. Listen, like, we're all human beings. We all have these sort of existential problems sometimes, and that can be super healing. So don't be afraid to have a couple friends you can share things with. I also encourage you learning more about other people who have been through this and shared their stories. YouTube's a great place there. Just look at other people who have talked about their experience and been through it. I found that when I started talking to some friends, just trying to be honest, and it didn't totally fix my problem, but it was like, at least someone's walking with me in this a little bit, and that can really help. And that plays into like therapy as well. If you have a therapist, sure, that's a piece of that. And at the right time, and I recommend that, having whether it is a therapist or whatever, someone that you talk to, that's a piece of that too. Starting to sort out those other issues or maybe traumas that are causing problems. But we'll get to that. Building your foundation with these lifestyle and mindset changes, those are these foundational things that can put you in a great spot, in a much better spot to talk about these things with friends or with a therapist, to actually have constructive conversation, constructive communication. And you can do that at any time, but if you start to put in things that give you a more solid base, that put you in a spot where you can think more clearly, feel like you're making progress, you're going to get way more out of like a therapy session or something like that, because you're going to be able to implement it. Whereas if you're just feeling awful and overwhelmed, like I used to sometimes go and I'd talk to someone, and then I'd feel better for like 5 minutes, but then I would just be back in my head, back eating crappy food, drinking to distract myself, and it didn't really do anything. So we'll get to that, but just a piece of this is kind of sharing, and the relationship piece of it. So just be mindful of that a little bit, and see if you can have a talk with a friend about it, or share it a little bit, or even start listening to some people's stories of them sharing their mental health journey, because you're going to start to realize that a lot of people have struggled with these things, and it's so common, and we all have our own struggles, and you're human. So cut yourself a bit of slack, and don't be too hard on yourself, but implement these things. This is so crucial, and no one can do it for you. So implement and experiment. Start with some simple changes. The diet, the mindfulness meditation, a bit of a schedule. I didn't mention exercise, but the 10-minute walks are huge. I recommend 3 10-minute walks a day. Build that in. Walks are easy. Listen to an audiobook or a podcast. But we'll talk more about that. But this is part 2, implementation. Start implementing some of these simple things. Just make a simple list and do it. I can't reiterate that enough. You've got to start doing some of these things and making some room for healing. So trust the process. Get after that. Let me know if you want to make these changes, if you need someone to make you accountable. If you still don't know what the changes are, I'll try to leave some simple tips on lists and that kind of thing. But that's all for now. Get after it. You got this. You can heal. You can get better. And this is just the beginning of the journey. It gets so much better. So that's all for now, and I'll be back with the 3rd video soon.